Coming up, a Cherokee citizen makes history as she becomes the president-elect of the American Bar Association. And the Inflation Reduction Act. What's in it for Indigenous communities? Plus, we're coming up on the anniversary of the 1680 Pueblo Revolt. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start in Washington, D.C., where the U.S. Senate has narrowly approved a smaller version of President Biden's Build Back Better bill. The Inflation Reduction Act includes a tax hike on big corporations and significant incentives to begin a transition away from fossil fuels. The bill, which is opposed by Republicans, would cost $740 billion if passed into law. Many environmentalists said the bill still favored the oil and gas industry over green power sources. However, supporters say the nearly $400 billion in incentives is just a start. The House is likely to consider the legislation this week when it comes back from a recess. And later in our newscast, we'll talk about what is in the IRA specifically for Indigenous communities. In the Pacific Northwest, a new advisory council is being called a historic improvement toward better relations between Indigenous people and the city. Last week, the Seattle City Council appointed its first Indigenous Advisory Council. It is the first of its kind in the state's history. It is made up of 9 newly appointed members, including local Indigenous organizers, as well as leaders of tribal and urban Native communities. The new council will advise the city government on policies and issues impacting American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian people living in Seattle. That also includes regional tribes in the state, such as the Duwamish people, who are not federally recognized. Seattle City Council President Deborah Juarez, who is a citizen of the Blackfeet Nation, says the council is intended to become a permanent platform in the future. Now to New Mexico, where we are learning new developments in the incident of an SUV that barreled toward Indigenous families. The collision happened last week during an evening parade at the Gallup Intertribal Ceremonial. This chaotic scene was captured and shared across social media. The alleged driver of the beige Tahoe that drove through the parade route has been identified as Jeff Irving. Irving has been charged with aggravated DWI, leaving the scene of an incident involving great bodily harm and 19 other counts. Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez, who narrowly missed being hit, took to social media to address the incident.
We were in the path of the vehicle. Thank God that the folks that were around me, our team members, our council delegates, were not struck by the vehicle. And it turned a corner, and from that point on, I don't know what happened.
The New Mexico State Police issued a statement saying more information will be made available after a full investigation. Now to Arizona, where ICT's Karina Dominguez recently visited with tribal citizens who are bringing awareness to a big issue.
In the Sonoran Desert, time-honored harvesting knowledge is being altered by climate change. Traditionally, in late June, the O'odham New Year is marked by harvesting baidaj, the saguaro cactus fruit. Before they start, they sing the baidaj harvesting song, as the Ho'ono'odham tribal citizen, Amy Wan, demonstrates.
So we have songs that connect us to everything that we do, the mountains around us, our foods, the different types of year, or the different times of the year. for different harvests and ceremonies and all of those good things.
Gaje is a vital part of Otam rain ceremonies.
This is our new year, and this is our time to pray and ask for renewal for the next cycle of life, because we believe that the rain definitely helps with that renewal cycle of the year, especially here in the desert.
However, they're growing increasingly concerned over observations they've made in recent years.
This year was an early harvest. So for me, I was anticipating to harvest during 4th of July weekend, which is also a time that a lot of families harvest. So instead of celebrating, 4th of July, they'll go out to harvest and spend their holiday that way. And so that's what I was anticipating. But we actually got a really big storm the Friday before that Monday, and that actually washed out what was left.
Typically, the saguaro flowers bloom toward the end of May, but the flowers bloomed an entire month earlier in April this year. Traditionally, the fruits ripen in June, and families harvest after the summer solstice. But this year, families harvested as early as the end of May. They believe many of these new observations stem from climate change. Juan says cultural preservation will help restore balance and encourages youth to learn more about Otam traditions. With climate change impacting the tradition of Gaje harvesting, traditional knowledge keepers are pressed now more than ever to keep even closer tabs and an even more intimate relationship with nature. In Tucson, Arizona, Karina Dominguez, reporting for ICT.
And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Coming up, more on the Inflation Reduction Act and an interview with a history-making Cherokee citizen. And later, most Americans don't know about what's called the first true American Revolution. We're learning about the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. Mary Smith is on her first day in a new position. She is the president-elect of the American Bar Association, which makes her the first Native American woman to hold the title. ICT's editor-at-large Mark Trahant traveled to Chicago a few weeks ago to speak with her. Let's take a look.
Well, first, just congratulations on being president-elect of the American Bar Association.
Oh, thanks so much.
It's really, in some ways, so appropriate because there's such a strong relationship with tribal nations and the law. And this kind of almost codifies that.
Well, I'm glad you think that. I mean, I know there's a long history in our country with the Iroquois and other tribes and the legal systems they set up. And I hope to continue that tradition.
What do you think? How will you tell us about your role and what you'll be doing in that job?
Well, the American Bar Association is the largest voluntary bar association in the United States, and it has 4 goals, and those are going to be my touchstones during my year. One is to serve our members. We help lawyers become better lawyers. We advance the rule of law, and many people may not know, but we actually run programs promoting democracy and rule of law issues in over 60 countries, including, of course, promoting the rule of law in the United States, which is much needed now. And third is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And of course, that's a passion of mine, and hope to continue all the good work that the ABA has been involved with.
And if you look at the judiciary and Article 3 judges, there's been a big bump in the last couple of years, but it's still way below any kind of representation.
Oh, for Native Americans, right. Yes, I know, because for a long time, Diane Humetua was the first Native American woman in the history of our country to be a federal judge. We have gotten several more through the Biden administration, which is fabulous, but we're still, there still has not been a Native American on the appellate courts. We're still waiting for that. And then, of course, the Supreme Court, that would be a dream. I'm glad that we finally got our first African American woman on the Supreme Court, but I would love to see the day to have a Native American on the Supreme Court.
In a role like president, there's a lot of education involved, and I guess the constituency would be both the attorneys who are members, but also to the general public. Mm-hmm. And how important does Indian law figure into those two areas?
The ABA does a significant amount on Indian law. We have a committed group of people who've worked on things. One of the things we do at the ABA is we have a House of Delegates that passes policy, and once it's adopted by the House, then the ABA can lobby on those issues. And so in the past few years, we've actually adopted policy on quite a few issues, including violence against women and the tribal jurisdiction provisions, missing, murdered Indigenous women, funding for the Indian Health Service, voting rights for Native Americans, support for tribal courts. And so there's been quite a lot, and we have weighed in Congress on all those issues.
One of the things that's happened in a number of states is to put Indian law on the bar exam. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you see expanding?
Yeah, when I was also previously president of the National Native American Bar Association, and that was one of the projects of the National Native American Bar Association. And I think it is very important, particularly in states where there's greater populations of Native Americans in that state, to have Indian law in the bar. But also that also funnels down to law schools as well, because if Indian law is not on the bar exam, then some of the schools, they may only offer Indian law one quarter, one semester, not the whole year. So, but it is an important area. I mean, we saw just last week the Supreme Court issued a decision on Indian law, because usually in every term there's usually one Indian law case every term in the Supreme Court.
I want to ask you about diversity and inclusion. And if you visit any law school these days, and I have recently, the number of law students who are female is significantly higher than the number of males. Does that now start to factor into partnerships and other promotion opportunities? Or are we still seeing a gulf there?
No, sadly, no. Women now make up, like as you noted, over 50% of law school classes, but we still see, in terms of partnerships and law firms, that women are only still hovering around the 19–20%, and even in the last 30, 40 years, it's only gone up incrementally each year. I mean, it's going in the right direction, but it's going so slowly. I mean, we have had women in law school classes for 50 years, and we don't see it translate into law school partnerships. I mean, we're starting to see more women general counsels of corporations, more people of color, but it's still very slow.
When you look at the history of the country, there's kind of a cycle of support for legal systems and then an unraveling of that. And it kind of is a long history. You see that now with folks worried about the court and different opinions of the court. How do you get people thinking about the rule of law?
It is a lot of education, and I think it starts when children are younger, learning about civics, learning about our system of government, the three branches of the federal government, the relationship of the federal government to the states, just even learning about the presidency. I mean, I think it starts young. So many people are not aware of civics. They don't teach it a lot anymore. And it's just education for adults as well, I think goes a long way. In the ABA, actually, we do have a public education division, and we sponsor Law Day and every year to help that in the schools.
One of the things I've always liked to watch is law students doing moot courts and how much intensity there is in that process. I think that's the kind of thing where the public sees it, then it changes your perception, because the amount of preparation and the amount of thought that goes into it is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, one of the things, I've been involved in bar associations for a long time, and the Chicago Bar Association has a program partnering with the Girl Scouts where the girls are able to do trial advocacy. So it is very important.
I just want to conclude with what makes you most hopeful about the legal profession.
I think the young people I meet who are going to law school and just the enthusiasm and passion they have, it always buoys my heart and gives me hope for the future.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
342 years ago, men from various Pueblo communities were gearing up to run to different villages in what is now New Mexico and to the Hopi Mesas in what is now Arizona. Their running was all in an effort to save Pueblo religions, cultures, and languages. In fact, it was how news of the 1680 Pueblo Revolt spread. Joining us today to talk about what's been called the first true American Revolution is John Gaje. He is the cultural educator at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center in New Mexico. Welcome, John.
Thank you and welcome. And it's really, you provide us the opportunity to come to speak to you all today.
John, I want to talk about the conditions that Pueblo people were fighting against in terms of what was imposed on them from the Spanish. Maybe talk about, why this uprising even happened to begin with.
Well, first of all, to begin with, all the previous segments of today's program, you're talking about law, justice, the right to sing the songs of harvest, the right to celebrate and commemorate the seasonal changes, the right to pick their fruits, the right to, first of all, to even be here as a human society, as well as having those spiritual existential constructs that are solely our own. Those were all the things that we talk about today, but they were instrumental, they were fundamental to really what the Pueblo peoples and their neighbors had been struggling for the 80 plus years that the Spanish colonists had been here. And it's through their struggle, it's through their perseverance, it's through their ingenuity that they were able to garner support together, to find the common impact to their societal structures that threatened their very existence. Dr. Joe Sando gave a very important example of how we can reflect upon the Pueblo Revolt. And I would simply say, certainly it was a revolt per se, but what it was the first successful indigenous revolt against a European colonizer that resulted in the colonizers actually leaving the homelands of the Pueblo people. And what Dr. Sando helped us understand is the difference between the American Revolution and the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, which occurred 95 years even before the Declaration of Independence was thought of, let alone put on a piece of paper, is that Dr. Sando said, for our Pueblo people, it was a fight for our very existence, for the right to, first of all, be here, the right to have the songs that we sing, the dances that are still very much practiced today, the existential construct of a society. That was what was at stake if the Pueblo people perhaps did not win against their Spanish colonizers, as compared to, say, the American colonists. Say the King George had overwhelming forces and defeated the American patriots. Well, they'd still be British citizens. They still have those components of what we now call the Great Britain, but they would still be there. They would have the same social structure. They would have the same component of their societies. For the Pueblo people, it would have been the elimination of them as a society, much like our Aztec neighbors south of us. We no longer see those groups of people, or the people are in the Caribbean, the Taino, the Arawak. Their language is gone. Their culture is gone. Today, we celebrate that every single day here at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and work along with all our other neighbors that inhabit what we now call Turtle Island to ensure that, first of all, we have the right to be here. We have the right to our songs. We have the right to our language. We have the right to claim our very existence and claim a narrative that helps us understand that these things are essential to us. It gives us our sense of place. It gives us our very being to who we are as human beings, and that we will continue to do this so that when we think about the future, we will still have these components that we talk about every single day, if not for the next 100 years, perhaps even for the next 1,000 years. As long as humans are here, these will be the things that identify us as human beings and certainly as Pueblo societies.
Maybe talk about how at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center you're celebrating the anniversary of the Pueblo Revolt.
Over the next day or so, we will be commemorating, first of all, today we'll have a virtual as well as in-person book club. We'll be talking about a book that was written by the Spanish Franciscan priests who were here they were writing letters to the Spanish crown. They were writing letters to the Viceroy of New Spain and letting them know of the conflict that was occurring here. One of the principal concepts that they were trying to explain was they were having difficulty converting the indigenous peoples who were here. But when we look into the really essence of that, is that the Pueblo people did not invite these people to come here. They didn't invite the Christian missionaries to come here. And much like we have up in our neighbors up in, I think it was in South Dakota, that one of their tribes decided to exile one of the Christian missionaries because it conflicted with what the traditional belief systems were pointing out that they were demonic. Well, we as a culture really do not have demons or saints or evil components to our existential belief systems. Certainly people behave badly, but we do not feel it's something that forces them to behave badly. This is what the Spanish and especially the Franciscan priests saw, that our people's existential belief systems were demonic, they were satanic, they were against Christian values. They were not. They were simply human constructs of what we see as our creator. And they try to quell that. That's what we do every single day. And over the next couple of days, tomorrow we'll be having some presentations that will be on our website, as well as other forums that people are invited to. We will have.
John, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Well, we'll definitely have to keep in touch with you on those events. Thank you so much for being here.
Certainly. Welcome. And thank you, everybody. Everybody have a good day.
On Sunday, President Joe Biden said he is optimistic that the Inflation Reduction Act will become law. So what's in it for Indigenous communities? ICT's Mark Trahant is here to share more details. Hi, Mark. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So the Inflation Reduction Act, it seems to be anything that everyone is talking about. Tell us what's in it, specifically for tribes.
Sure. Let me add some context first, because I think it's really important. If you go back 50 years ago, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who later became a U.S. Senator, warned Richard Nixon about carbon dioxide and how important it was to do something about it, CO2. Nothing happened for 50 years. It was incremental. This is the first big ticket bill that addresses climate change. And it's about $400 billion, so it's a big, big deal. For tribes, there are about $363 million in specific programs. Some of them include, for example, $75 million for electrification of houses where you can turn them into solar units. There's some exciting technologies coming on. Tribes have access to power lines and some other aspects of being able to get clean energy up to markets. One of the more controversial aspects is Navajo Transitional Energy near Farmington, New Mexico, which has a coal plant, and they want to do carbon storage. And this bill actually provides credits for that carbon storage.
Do we know yet what the reaction has been from tribal leaders or Indigenous advocates? I mean, so many of them are outspoken about Indigenous and, climate-related issues.
Sure. And there's been a division. A lot of tribal leaders are looking at what resources they might have to get some things done. And so in that sense, they're for it. NCAI, for example, put out an analysis, National Congress of American Indians, that said, here's the way tribes can use the money. A lot of the environmental groups have been opposed to the act straight out, because they say it takes us too far in the direction of fossil fuels. But that's actually one of the more interesting things is you look at, say, opening up oil and gas leases on Department of Interior lands, and it looks like a bad thing, but there's still market forces at work. And there are already 9,000 federal leases that aren't being developed. And their thought is that a lot of these leases will be too expensive to develop and they may never happen.
You know, what struck me about this Inflation Reduction Act is how much the Interior Department is going to have to play a role in implementing so much of it. Maybe talk about, with Secretary Deb Haaland being there, what she can expect to see.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, whether it's leasing or actually coming up with the mechanics on how you measure things, it's going to be the Department of Interior. The biological diversity, the Secretary will have a huge, huge role. One aspect that I think is really important for both the department and for tribal communities is we got to ramp up the jobs. The number of people who need to produce solar has got to be increased. The people who work at the Interior Department has got to be increased. This is also a Jobs Act. It's probably going to create thousands and thousands of jobs.
Absolutely. Well, you have a story coming up soon, and we only have about 20 seconds left here, but tell us what to expect and when we can find it.
Next story gets into some of the complexity.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much.
Happy to do it.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I am Aaliyah Chavez.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.